Hi, I'm Raul Ramirez from the Catch Wrestling Alliance, and we're here with a very special guest today, Thiago Niemeyer. And I guess my cat wants to join in here. Um, so, um, our, our guest has many things that he does. He's actually like a rock legend, right, in Brazil. Hopefully, he can start touring in the United States after COVID. But he's also a trained anthropologist, and you know a ton of basically like not only martial arts history, but in particular a lot of Brazilian martial arts history, like jiu-jitsu and luta libre type history. And so, welcome to our show once again.
Thank you very much for having me. Thanks. It's great to be here once again.
So, for people who might not know this, so we just released a video course called Pressure Passing System Volume 1, and it involves how to use pressure passing to get out of closed guard. And in particular, we kind of base it off of like one move and all the variations that can come off of this one pass, but it involves pinning. And so Thiago was kind enough to kind of look at this course for us. And so I was wondering what your thoughts are.
I think it's great. It's great. I think uh, on my very own intuition, I tried to do things like this, and it worked a few times. But right now, I understand how to not expose my back and how to use the necktie and my shoulder pressure to it's great. It's hard to describe grappling. It's but it's a great addition, especially right now that pressure passing is once again hyped up because I think people have gone through so many possibilities with the guard that people are looking back to guard pass, and it's great. It's awesome. It works on a lot of guys. I train with, let's say, high level dudes, brown belts, black belts, BJJF competitors, and it works like a charm. I will not name names because people don't like to have their guards passed, and they're going to watch it.
Yeah.
But yeah, one of the guys said he was a black belt. He said as soon as I did it, and he competes, he said he's maybe I have like 25 pounds on him, but he said it doesn't work. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. I said, oh my god, it just worked, and you're screaming it doesn't work, but let's not name names.
Well, that's the thing too, right? There's some kind of cognitive dissonance, right? When you kind of use a unorthodox technique and it just like shatters kind of someone's
Yeah.
understanding of what should and should not work, and then sometimes they get mad, right?
Yeah, exactly. What you should be prepared for, and this is not something you are. I don't think a regular Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu fighter is ready for this. I'm not saying he can't be because once it becomes part of like grappling vocabulary in general, people
Hmm.
start to pay attention to those kinds of things. But it works gi and no gi. For me, it worked gi as well, like worked like a
Wow, that's
charm.
mhm.
Yeah, great. I didn't try the heel hooks yet. The heel hook part of it, I just tried to do it clean, but it's
Mhm.
great. It's great,
Wow.
especially because I don't like to stand up. I once I went to a Rickson seminar, and he said there are no guards. Hickson Gracie seminar. He said something like there's no such thing as like whatever X guard this and that because you should never get up. So this course helped me like how do I get up in a wrestling like manner, judo-ish manner. I'm also a judoka, judo player, and I can pass without like having hooks in. So it's awesome, awesome. It's great.
Yeah. No. That's like a really great point you just made too, because I think that that's also like a catch wrestling idea where people confuse amateur wrestling with catch wrestling because it's like amateur wrestling's been so dominant, for the past few decades, and they do a lot of these, like say, like a lot of takedowns where maybe they'll start a knee over toe double leg. So like the one who's doing the double leg actually is down on the mat, and then they stand up to try to complete the takedown, And so you'll have a lot of these things where it's like, yeah, maybe someone goes down, all of a sudden they're standing up again, and then they go back down, and that's why I think a lot of people don't understand. So like, if I teach a catch wrestling takedown, a lot of times it will be like you'll start kind of standing, and if you take them down, you go on the ground and then you stay down. You don't
Stay
want to
down.
be
Yeah,
kind of
exactly.
you don't want to be going up and down because it's almost like
No,
you give them space.
too much space because they can, well, they can get top position. And I come from a period in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I started training in 1994, like after watching the UFC 2, whatever,
Hmm.
on the VHS. And like it, it was an advantage to be on top. Like we could fight off our backs. I couldn't when I was like a yellow belt, brown belt, yellow, orange, then blue. But then I started developing some bottom game. But it was something we could do. But the ideal scenario would to be on top, like all the time and pressure. But it's kind of lost right now. I don't think people, even black belts, they don't. Most of them don't agree with it because they can see a point on training for something. They say, "Oh, this is not MMA." They're into IBJJF stuff, which I really respect IBJJF because at least well they keep a standard for black belts, and I can say back in the day the standards were super high. It was really like wrestling. You had to fight your way through the belt. There's no such thing as a no, flow drill. Like, no. Now I do this because I have two herniated discs and competed a lot. But and I like the idea. It's nice, and I became more technical. But it would be always like a fight to finish, and you would only progress the belt ranking system if you were tough. Let's say tough. Technique mattered, but I remember my teacher said something like, I'll put in English, but so it's like first comes your bravery, your spirit, then comes the technique, then comes your strength. But the
Mm.
most important thing was to also go defend yourself well, because I think jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu is very defensive, but also get top position and submit your opponent. And with the advantage rule, unfortunately, we have people set up for moves that the guy's only going to sit and then come back, and then it's one advantage, zero to you. I see nothing wrong with it, but I'm not really interested in scoring advantages and stuff. I will compete this year, but whatever. If I lost because of the advantage, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter.
Mm. Yeah, but would you be upset though? I mean, it's like, oh, you lost just by
Yeah,
this kind
definitely.
of this
Definitely.
weird kind of a subjective thing sometimes, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's really annoying, and it's really impressive because even if in during sparring sessions you can tap someone out or feel like you have an advantage, they are counting some stuff in their mind and they said, I had this one advantage against you, and then this one, but I when I competed. Uh, the first tournaments I competed on, like Rio de Janeiro State and stuff, and all the Copas, we had small tournaments where like the teachers would gather and choose who's fighting who. They had a table, they sit around. We don't see this anymore, but I I remember like this existed at some point, maybe 95, 1 year, but we didn't care about it. We cared about scoring points, like takedowns, passing guard, knee on belly, mount, position, and back, but to score an advantage, just I don't agree with the whole idea of like I understand there is Stalin, but the panic around it became so big that people can't pace themselves anymore. Like because if you're going to do fast pace, then let's say, face a wrestler and you're trying to do fast pace, then it's much better for him than it is for you.
Hmm.
If it was like to fight a guy who was like a more of a wrestling guy, like luta livre guys, I'll try to touch his left shoulder so he comes goes back, and then he gets tired and maybe pull guard, or I try one of my own takedowns. It's changed a lot. I think it's part of it, but the sad thing is it's not going to be an Olympic sport. I think grappling will, and if you see like the top BJJ guys ever, like Roger Gracie and sports jiu-jitsu, and Demian Maia, like who's like 43 still fighting, and as far as I know, like you can take hormones like NBA. So 43, your testosterone is really down. Like almost he has a grip on you. He doesn't let it go. And I like this about catch wrestling. I like this. It's about not letting your opponent flee from the ground.
Yeah.
I
It,
really like it. Really,
oh,
really like it.
oh, I'm glad to hear that, and I think people, and I'm really happy that that you're here because let's go and try to maybe articulate it a little bit because I think sometimes people try to dismiss catch wrestling as like not having kind of a methodology, even though we do say like how kind of like how you were describing, where it's like you will try to grab someone or catch them, right, and then um, it's not like you're doing it in a non-protected or like unsafe for you way. Like when I mean unsafe, because this is another thing that another criticism that I think people who just don't understand, they'll try to say like either you're giving your back or there's a potential to be choked. And I think for those who like kind of know like the real way, because we've always had neck cranks and stuff like that, so there should be a protection of your neck also just built into catch wrestling. So when you go and attack someone, it's not like you're automatically giving up a choke. And I think in this case, sometimes people are kind of confusing the amateur wrestling with catch wrestling.
Definitely, definitely. I tried some amateur wrestling when I lived in the Netherlands. I enjoyed it a lot. I did a lot of judo there, but I understood that. Well, this is not for me. These guys, it's like I'm trying to throw like javelin throws against guys who threw javelins
Hmm.
during high school. It's not possible. You
Hmm.
just put in a gi against me, and I liked it. I learned a lot of stuff with it, but the stuff I use the most is like, for instance, someone grabs my leg, then I get up, then I go straight here or here. Like these are the things that I think catch wrestling refined in a way, or not refined because it's older, but it is way more refined. But since it looks now we have like jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu is so hegemonic that people
Hmm.
fail to appreciate the beauty of different arts. I have, as an example, I would quote the remember that Duke Rufus, like the kickboxer against
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
Thai guy. People said, no, there's no way he's kicking your leg. It doesn't work because it doesn't work in period. Uh, it was you. I don't think to act as if you're above it all or like the superior martial art. If we're talking about like the green the sorry the pardon the red belts who can strike palm strikes here, then okay, it's the most complete one. But this is not what is being taught,
Hmm.
and people don't believe it. Don't believe that the old school guys can instead. Well, but the U.S. Secret Service, the secret services around the world do believe it, but they don't believe. I heard that in the 80s, when they, I was already taught jujitsu in a more modern way since '94, but in the 80s, '70s, like guard was something that You didn't learn guard. You learned to stand and keep your distance and protect your face, and then clinch and bring your opponent down. And one of the things we're uh, part of Brazilian Jiu Jitsu knowledge that makes it truly Brazilian is the way a good Brazilian Jiu Jitsu guy can clinch. ATT guys, if you watch their fights, their head coach is Conan Silveira, and they clinch in a different way. It's a different way of clinching that involves a lot of judo and a lot of pacing and adjusting to your opponent. But
Hey, back.
oh, I'm sorry, my connection's a little bit weird.
Okay, no, no problem, no problem. So yeah, we're still recording. So do you remember what you were saying? Before you cut off, you're talking about the way like the old school Brazilian jiu-jitsu people would do their takedowns. Are you still there?
Thiago joined.
Hello, Raul. I'm sorry
Hello?
for.
Oh, no problem. You're back. So and you're
Yeah, I'm
moving.
back.
The
I'm
video is moving.
back.
All right. So you were saying
Yeah,
about like, oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah. No, well, I think not something important anymore. And I was saying that I would I'm I'm more into now in IBJJF. I'm more into girls than guys because guys it became too much of a game, and for girls for whatever reason it looks a little bit more aggressive. They're trying to score points to submitting someone who is like your level. It's difficult in like 7, 8, 9, 10 minutes, but at least trying to score points because it's otherwise some things became boring. Like I'm all I don't pull guard, but I have pulled guard a lot of times actually fighting judokas and stuff. But I think it's an emergency thing, and right now you have the double pull. So I'm not bashing it. It's just something else. Like my father doesn't watch football anymore because he thinks it became something else.
Hmm.
But I think it's great what new guys like are doing for BJJ, with, like Musu Messi or stuff. But people completely forgot about the old school. But
Yeah.
I think now people are valuing it way more because they understand that well sometimes a wrestler goes into the gym and taps out the blue belts just by pressure, top pressure, and this can happen. You have to learn at least to put your hand like right here and show him it's not amateur wrestling. And people are not ready for it. Everything it's I'm all for safety and stuff, but if you want it to be like that safe, like you can do taekwondo, it's I don't know. I also like taekwondo. I tried a few lessons, but well, like feeling safe, it's I don't know. I have I, I, I never got into this new jujitsu. I think it's mostly for selling magazines and stuff and
Hmm.
branding. I don't care
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah. So that actually makes me think of a couple things. Like, so it's like that's one of the criticisms nowadays too, where people are saying, "Well, how come I don't see catch wrestlers doing like some of these big jujitsu tournaments?" But kind of like how you were mentioning, what's like it's almost like and it's all jujitsu is hegemonic, right? Where it's like so many people are kind of. I think I've described it as like, well, they're so into that, it's almost like they're brainwashed or kind of like they're not going to like anything that kind of deviates from that kind of mainstream understanding. It like creates like this cognitive dissonance where it's like they can't handle it. But
Yeah, they can handle it. They can handle it. I was talking to a friend of mine who's a black belt, and he has his own gym. I was training there for a while, but he just cannot admit even old school guys beating new school guys. For him, it's something. He said for me like he said to me like Roger Gracie tapped Bushisha because Bushisha was like 15 days in Hawaii on partying. And I said, well, so it means he's stupid because he shouldn't do it. He lost. This
Mhm,
is
mhm,
such a poor excuse. And what people don't understand is that jujitsu is important to them. It's much more important to me than to a lot of those guys who make it a religion. I understand sometimes you're depressed or you have anxiety, whatever you get into jujitsu, but people don't want to listen to new stuff, and they feel they, you hurt their ego by, especially for a local black belt, and you go to a gym and you tap the purple belts with neckties. They get sad, but if what if it is your best move? I remember Kasum saying this when I was a kid. That he watched me training, and because way back, IBJJF was a much tougher thing. If you watch the '90s fights, we had to go through trials because there were only so many different teams. So, for example, my teacher was a student of Carson Gracie and De La Riva. We would fight the Carson Gracie trials, and it was harder than winning the championship. I think it, somehow we lost this mentality, this martial thing. Like this is fighting. Uh, After all, it's fighting, and there's one thing that is called like the reality of fighting.
mm.
And well, it doesn't matter you don't like bulldog chokes. Neck cranks were allowed when I was a kid,
Wow.
and allowed for kids. I was neck cranked
Mm.
once. I went to the hospital. I neck cranked a lot of people as well. I would throw them back, boom, just Batistaca stuff. Batistaca was allowed, like slam, boom.
Nice.
Because if you want to play guard is something really difficult to handle. I think now I have some, as a black belt, I have some understanding of guard, but definitely a, much more of a guard passing dude. And with all the rules like protecting you, it, it doesn't get really real. And the problem is not in sports BJJ itself, but I would say the problem is much more in when people try to apply it on MMA. They try to put hooks to get the back and things that are not necessary. Okay, if you started doing it, then you can go for it because it's great. Hooks are great. But there's a million other things you can do, and you just simply don't look at it because jiu-jitsu is so hegemonic. One guy that started like trying to do jiu-jitsu things and then went back to his roots and had better performance was Ben Askren. Ben Askren,
Oh. Mhm.
in a few fights, he tried to put the hooks in, but putting the hooks in is kind of tricky. And if you do it since you're a kid, it's like karate. Like if you're Lyoto Machida is one thing, but like learning karate, like during your camp and try to expose your face, it's not a great idea. It's better to keep your guard up. So it's so hegemonic, and it's what you're saying. Like the talent pool, it's much bigger. So and everyone is like a jiu-jitsu fighter. Rolando Sanchez is a jiu-jitsu fighter. Okay, I agree, but if he's a jiu-jitsu fighter from Gracie Barra, then jiu-jitsu is not what people say. Like because he cranks people's arms and
Mm.
takes people down. I think it's people. It's kind of a gentrification of the art. I would call it this way.
Yeah, that's a really interesting way of putting it. Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. Because then it can be on every street. Like here in LA, we have jujitsu studios like everywhere, and like it's like a almost like a gentrified or sanitized thing, where they're also
Sanitized.
really,
Sanitized.
yeah, they're really expensive. Like every gym, and yeah, they have kind of like this really almost like a corporate look, where it's like if they have photo like promotional photos on their website, it's like really clean looking children all wearing white gis and all that. So yeah, that's totally kind of like this gentrification that you're talking about.
Bring your family.
Yeah, yeah, totally,
Bring your
totally.
family. Family fun.
Yeah.
Family fun. I respect that because I have a lot of friends who are teaching in the states, and they're great fighters, incredible fighters. Some of them have very consistent results in uh, 10, 11 years ago in IBJJF, and they're still like competing and stuff. And we disagree on a lot of stuff, but I agree that for them it was a chance to make a living. But we can't let the flame die. It's funny because after a few years, like a lot of the black belts also have this mentality because their students they project on them that they're invincible and stuff, and so they keep making up new rules just so they don't lose. But losing is just part of life, so it's how
Yeah.
fast. I remember. Yeah, I remember two things Carson said. One was that I should only focus on Americana for now until I was a blue belt. I was a yellow belt, and I
Oh.
was a Rio de Janeiro state champ as a purple belt. I only had this move and Koshi Guruma, like. And the other thing was that I remember he was a character, and he when I the times I was with him, he, he didn't even put the gi anymore. He would have a parrot here, and yeah, I would go to the nightclubs. But he said a lot of interesting stuff. One of the things he said is that you should sharpen the thing you do the best instead of trying to learn everything. Just forget about guard, whatever. Just don't let your opponent put you in a bad position. Everyone has a position where they don't feel comfortable. Like I'm all for guard. I'm a Brazilian Jiu Jitsu guy. I like the X guard. I like the closed guard. I'm not that good at the closed guard. I would like to be good at the closed guard, as everyone would like to be. But I'm good at, I don't know, sitting guard, all this stuff. But this is kind of simple. It's a defensive. I, I'm happy that right now people are like, you have more seminars of old school guys who are showing it around BJJ champs. It's not only in America; it's also like here in Brazil, and people see like, well, there is, yeah, this is uh, a different level because people focus too much on the athletic performance, and there's only so much you can do and so much you can leave. And well, you have your prime, then you're not in your prime anymore, but doesn't mean that you're people get too impressed by the by what Eastern martial arts says the least important. We can agree or disagree on that, which is the physical aspect. So um, it's complicated, and I think catch wrestling is really old school. That's what I like. A lot of moves I did there when I was a kid. They were kind of catch wrestling. No, it's not catch wrestling. I think I figured out some stuff like throwing people when they
Mhm.
try to single like me, throw them and let them be, and then turn my back to them like that movie with Billy Robinson.
Yeah.
Yeah, but people even in custom people would say like, "Oh, this is not allowed anymore. This is dangerous," and maybe because a lot of accidents happen in the 80s, so it's kind of a two-way street. But I think we should do it with safety. Now we're able to do it. But still, even with the gentrification and all that, I think if you compare it to judo, karate, taekwondo, still have like the most rigid belt ranking system because it was so much different in the 90s. Like being a black belt automatically meant that you would volunteer yourself for a vale tudo. This is because also because we had palm strikes
Mm.
every Friday. Not very not technical at all, but palm strikes and defending yourself and trying to clinch. But right
Wow.
now it became, yeah, yeah, palm strikes is part of Brazilian Jiu Jitsu as well as luta livre, palm strike fighting. But now we don't have it anymore, and I don't think we should have it. This is one of the only things in the from the old school that maybe I I did it a few years ago. I did it with my friends again just to remember the old times. It's not nice. It's better to learn how to box, and but it's great for self defense because you have a notion of distance, which is because if you take UFC one, like Press Gracie would establish a distance, slap, and do a bayana, which people call a variation of the double leg takedown with more jiu-jitsu like.
Mm.
It's supposed to you had a you could step on Fridays we could step on like John Jones does, Wes Gracie did, um,
Uh-huh.
yeah. And I think this is and guard was supposed to in the 70s and 80s people trained like this every day. So it's guard was the last resort. If you don't get slapped in the face, in the body, if you're taken down, then you take someone. Uh, uh, if someone is over you, you assume you take top position. This is uh, sweep. This was sweeping back in the day.
Yeah, and then but yeah, that's the thing. It's so weird how nowadays, like in sport jujitsu or sport like no-gi, then it's like you have people saying like, "Oh, I have to start in by pulling guard," and so yeah, there is like a complete like 180 about how the way things are done.
180. But of course, you had schools who that focused more on the guard. Like for example, Gracie Baja, the original Baja Gracie, Machado brothers. But still, still, I'm 100% sure that Machado did all the bomb strike things, and because once you get this is something you learn. Once you get a hold, and it's not like wrestling. You should get a hold like this. Once you get a hold of your opponent, one of the things you can do if you're very good at it is pulling guard and then sweeping, like not
Mm.
pulling guard and exposing your face,
Mm.
but those were different times. Like with, for example, there were streets we couldn't pass if we had Brazilian Jiu Jitsu T-shirts, and the opposite was true for Luta Livre guys. It was like war. It was
Mm.
crazy, like kids fighting and adults fighting as well. Like and Vale Tudo's being organized, like just because of beefs, and it would extend throughout like schools and stuff. And it was I'm happy my kids won't leave those times anymore, I hope. But it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. And also, like, people didn't have, like, this thing with guns that they have now. So they respected. I remember we had a Vale Tudo in my school. It was a very big school. And I fought a Taekwondo guy. It was like, and then the inspector came and the Vale Tudo stopped, but we would respect, like, oh, the guy punched me in the face. I slapped him. He kicked me, whatever. Even Taekwondo, I feel sad for it. Taekwondo was dangerous, man. I remember the guy breaking bricks when I was a kid. Bah, bah, bah. And right now it's
Mm.
like a tag game. It feels like a tag thing.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
because it's gone to the Olympic style. So it's like every school just focuses on that, and then those rules change every year, right, to make it like I guess like almost like different from what it used to be.
exactly. I think IBJJF noticed it and included the heel hook for adults, brown and belt, brown and black. So because and now you can for a while I couldn't do even neckties. Neckties were not allowed. I think an update from 2015 allowed them again. I was about to almost like give up jiu-jitsu and go in full luta livre because, well, I can. Well, of course, I like to strangle, to do a lot of arm bars and stuff. But if I can even uh, threaten you with a necktie, it becomes way more difficult, and because you have your weapons and you can use them. So it's
Yeah. Yeah, you mentioned one time when we were chatting about like the this notion of kind of like the hidden jujitsu, and I think this is also kind of like there's a thing about like say like the hidden catch wrestling where it's like um and I think this kind of goes back to the hegemony of jujitsu where it's like we can be showing a lot of say top game pressure passing, you know, catch wrestling moves where it is heavy on like pressure, but a lot of people won't understand. what it is. And sometimes, like, if we even kind of expose a little bit of our back towards our opponent, then they're like, "Oh, that's too much back exposure," or "You're gonna get choked," or but I think, like, does that kind of go back to this idea that you had, where it's like this, the pressure kind of being like the hidden technique that people can't see, or like the
Exactly.
average person just can't see, right?
And see, well, the move we shot, I shot with my friend and sent you. The first one, like people found it was great, like the heel hook. But the second one, a lot of people, even wrestlers, are saying, "You're giving your back," but it's so subtle. And also, I think the hidden catch wrestling for me would be like learning what they call in judo osaikomiwaza, like how to be heavy and calm while you're heavy. You should be in flow state, like not think of anything. It's like surfing. If you fall off the board, then well, bad things are going to happen. But you have to adjust your weight. But but people like flashy stuff. It's capitalism. People like flashy stuff, and
Yeah, yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, where they'll do like the move, or they'll actually, yeah, they'll want to learn the flying armbar or whatever, but they're not going to learn how to use that pinning pressure to even almost like have it look like you're giving, or even give your back. I mean, geez, it's okay, right? Because if
yeah,
you have
yeah,
that pressure on them, you're actually pinning them down by pushing your back into them. And you're making it very, very difficult, especially like also if you have like wrist control and you're smashing them down, maybe they'll only have one arm free, and like there's no way they're going to be choking you just with like one
yeah,
arm, or they have to reach it all the way around your back. And it makes no sense, but the like people will still be like making these comments. And yeah, I think it goes back to where it's like there's something that they're not, that it's hidden, I guess, right? um, but it's hidden in plain sight, right?
yeah. Hidden in place. But you know something? I've been training with and my secret at our secret where I shoot the stuff. It's where we invite people over to train. There's a guy who competes mostly in nogi. Now, he decided he would be competing mostly in nogi after training with us for a lot of time. He's light. He's a brown belt. He's an instructor at a very big gym in the area, and he's kind of he exposes his back all the time for kimuras, and I talked about him with catch wrestling. He's really interested. I said, well, if you had pin in pressure to your game, then it would be great. And we're going over some stuff, and he's also teaching me a lot of other those new leg locks that people are doing.
Hmm.
But I think that somehow I've been trying to. I'm not that much of a leg lock guy unless it's really necessary because I'm heavy. To bounce back, it's complicated. I'm not very good at exposing my back. Uh, but I still think like the way Sakuraba did, for example, compared to like let's say Craig Jones, it's easier for me. I'm not saying it's better or worse, but it's easier. Like Sakuraba's approach to heel hooks, it's easier because you're isolating a limb and using pressure. And like Craig Jones's way, Craig Jones is a wonderful grappler. It's maybe too sophisticated to learn in a discrete way. Let's say not a continuous way, but a discrete way in which you because what I think is great about jiu-jitsu and fighting in general is when you bring a lot of stuff you know from, and then you make your own soul food. And for me, like when I see Sakuraba's leg locks, it makes more sense. They look more like Luta Livre's leg locks, but now Luta Livre is moving a little. It's also becoming a little bit more jiu-jitsu like.
Hmm.
What they call American Jiu-Jitsu, I would call Luta Livre Esportiva, Sports Luta Livre. People are calling American Jiu-Jitsu is crazy. It's like full contact karate. I don't know. It's something I don't. And America has its own style, right? Rough and tumble. People should
Yes.
restore it, yeah, instead of trying.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think you commented too, right? It's like some people are trying to say like, "Oh, this is American Jiu-Jitsu," and then, but it's like, I think that kind of goes back to the hegemony thing, where I think people now, almost like karate, like back in the day,
Yeah,
when
yeah,
people think about Asian martial arts, like the first word is like karate. Now Jiu-Jitsu is so popular, so it's like someone who's maybe marketing or whatever, they're gonna say like, well, "This is American Jiu-Jitsu" or whatever. But you know, not know. Oh, and I think a good example would be the Kimura, and people don't know that it's like, we have an English word for the Kimura, the double wrist lock.
the Boris
So
lock. Yeah, exactly.
yeah, so it's like you don't have
Do
to
you
use the.
know why Americana? Do you know why the Americana was is called Americana?
Yeah, do you want
In
to
this
tell the
sense,
story?
yeah,
Yeah,
in,
yeah,
in
please.
this sense, I think the Gracies are great because uh, the American wrestlers from YMCA would fight jiu-jitsu fighters in the 40s and 50s. They had this American lock, the Americana. So it was a wrestling move. And Kimura, when you say Kimura, Kimura is a guy who defeated Helio Gracie, with this move that he didn't know. So it's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is kind of different from Japanese. The Japanese is even more technical, but Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu it's more about like Machado says, cooking the rooster, as we call it. Like I
Mhm.
advance a little bit, like the but that's it. It's an open system. It's supposed to be open. So a guy from a judo guy submitted him with Kimura. Now we have it. Ezekiel Choke. I met Ezekiel himself.
Mhm.
Ezekiel was a judo guy who would compete in the brown belt division in jiu-jitsu. Never trained jiu-jitsu, and would finish everyone with the Ezekiel choke, which is
Oh,
the crossface. But now
yeah.
people do not accept crossfaces, even if it's in the regulations. I like crossfaces, but people think it's. I was talking to a friend of mine who's like a black belt, an instructor, and he said it doesn't work. It doesn't work. You can make pressure, and we're having beers, and I get in more and more pressure. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. But I was like, oh my god, I'm going to break his teeth. So I said, and we're drinking, and I said, okay, so it doesn't really work. You're 100% right because what can you do? Like,
Mhm.
well, people they don't want to see it, and I think to be a BJJ black belt, you gotta have an open mind because it's not a do. You have the judo and the jujutsu. In the jutsu, you do things your way. That's it. It's well, you have a lot of positions, but they don't matter. Roger Gracie talks about it. It don't matter. I have my own positions. I submit everyone doing this. Even Bushisha was submitted. He tapped Bushisha out, like doing the basics.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter your opponent's moves. I think this is kind of this goes against the os principle, osu. If people say osu, it means you don't care. Like, oh, my opponent can take me down, whatever. You're going to make your game happen. But people don't think like this. It's kind of like subterfuge. Is this the word? Like kind of using too much. People lost touch a little bit. I think in the next years, maybe like we will see like other grapplers like beating jiu-jitsu guys, and maybe people will understand that jiu-jitsu is an, just another grappling style, like a great grappling style, my favorite. But you have other styles. It's not because you're a Muay Thai guy that karate is bad or the other way around. It doesn't matter. I don't know. It's because the Gracies had this thing of challenging people to prove that there was such thing as a superior martial art. And their enemies, like the only ones who didn't surrender were like the luta livre guys who decided to train grappling just to show that it's not about the best art, but the best artists. And this is
Mhm.
something I like about luta livre. Just first it comes from the favelas, and jiu-jitsu is more of a middle class thing, middle to upper class thing. But second, they don't claim to be the best. They claim to, you it's very physical. gotta be in shape to beat your opponent. They have this kind of wrestling judo mentality, not of like superior martial art. This is too blood sport to me. It's just I don't believe this kind of stuff. That you see this guy now, Juan Espino Giepa, the Spanish dude from Las Canarias. He fights like he takes everyone down, and he fights at the Lucha Canaria from Canary Islands, and he's a champion, and he won the Ultimate Fighter, and
Hmm.
he was also a champion in Senegal, Senegalese wrestling.
Oh
So
wow,
it's
wow.
yeah, of course, like people know how to take you down. Here in Brazil, in the Amazon area, close to Amazon area, we had two guys in the UFC. One of them was training with John Jones. The Marajó brothers, they do a luta marajoara, which is a type of like wrestling, of beach wrestling. They have crazy setups for takedowns. Crazy, it's crazy. It's very difficult to stand in front of them. Even for that's what people at their camps. I forgot. They're one of them is in New Mexico now. Was
Hmm.
a few years ago, and the wrestlers were saying, I watched it again, saying that it's very difficult to take him down because of the way he approaches the fight. His moves are unpredictable and stuff. So people want to be doing the best thing and be the best at what at the best thing. I, I don't know how to express this, but I do the best thing in the world, and I want to be the best and the best, like just be the best mentality that is making everyone sick right nowadays. So it's okay. I would think of jujitsu more as something where you learn to defend yourself and defend, not attacking people. First of all, by being able to verbalize, like for example, if you're being bullied in school, then you say, "Well, are you talking to me?" or something like this, and then you scare the bully away because it's also his insecurity that's making him being a bully and stuff. I know it has a great effect on kids. Still, I see it has a great effect on kids because I visit a lot of schools around, and I see kids getting the yellow belts and then orange belts and girlfriends. So it's great. It's great, and they used to be bullied, so it's great. But well, I don't think we should limit ourselves too much to the rules, the IBJJF rules that although it is getting bigger now.
Yeah, no, but I think that's it's kind of one of those things where it's like if someone who is like looking to bully someone, you know, like how you mentioned, it's like their own insecurity, and a lot of times they're looking to bully someone who they perceive as being weaker than them. But if you're training, right, and then all of a sudden you're not going to be giving off this
The
weakness or this
vibe,
weak
yeah,
vibe, right? Yeah, so
yeah,
they're gonna automatically know that you're
yeah,
not an easy target.
exactly. I when I was in the sixth grade or something, I went from like a Montessori school where like you paint all day and stuff to like a school where like that was like crazy. Half of the kids didn't pay because they're from the the favela next to it, which
Hmm.
was great for my for me as a human being. But at first, like people would try to beat me and stuff. I started doing jujitsu, and then I would play RPG, whatever. I would roll my D20, and people wouldn't do anything because it's just not. I wouldn't give off this vibe. If people, what are you doing? Are you talking to me? Yeah, I think once in maybe 4 years I had to fight someone, and I didn't want to, but I remember my teacher saying, "Well, if someone insists to fight you, then you go there." This is jujitsu at the scheduled time, and as soon as you get there, you use this. You're going to train this. Use this right here. As soon as the guy says something, and this is what I did, and I never fought again in school. Like the guy, he used to be a, I don't know, a graffiti, not an artist, a guy who would place his name on things, and he was fed up with my attitude. And I said, okay, I was so nervous, but once I got there and boom, I just the fun it was over, and we all became friends, and I could play my role playing games again during lunch break, and I didn't need to play football to be accepted. It's great.
Hmm.
Yeah. Jiu-Jitsu has this is an interesting thing because I think I, I would definitely, if we had wrestling here, I would definitely do it because it's something I always loved wrestling and during the games and stuff, but we don't. So it and well, in jiu-jitsu, well, wrestling is more about the grind, and in jiu-jitsu you have a philosophy where you shouldn't be bullying people around or whatever. So this is a good thing, but I'm not bashing wrestling at all because it's maybe my after jiu-jitsu, judo, wrestling, catch wrestling. These those for me are kind of one of and the same thing. That's the thing. When I said American lock, it's because like right now I'm going to use your pass, and I'm saying, oh, I learned from catch wrestling, but this is a jiu-jitsu pass as well because it works in jiu-jitsu. I learned it from catch wrestling. I like to think of it more as an open system of grappling than fixed positions and people. Another thing that is I really identify with, really like about catch wrestling is that the teaching is more concept based than it is positional. For example, like right now, I have a purple belt friend who teaches our white belt friends blue belt a lot of sweeps and stuff. He's a great fighter, but it has like seven, eight, nine steps. And when it gets to the third or fourth step, I'm, you
You tuned
he
out
lost
already,
me.
right?
Yeah, I'm tuned out.
Yeah.
I was, and I like that there is a concept behind what you teach in catch wrestling. So it's stay heavy all time, keep your attitude, uh, uh, be calm. Where that's what I kind of understood. Like, don't hesitate in smashing people, just smash them.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if you hesitate, that's what I noticed when I was like a purple, when I was a brown belt. I was training a lot to get my black belt, and I said, well, this is not something at a very old school dojo with a lot of 42-year-old, like 4th-degree black belts that did like nasty wrist locks. I said, well, it's every time I think of like what I'm having for dinner, I lose. So I should have a clear mind. While whenever I think of something else, I lose. And looking back, now I understand why I would lose. Like maybe if I would win the first fight, then in the second fight I would not do as well because I was thinking of other stuff. So it's more about I think that uh, the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt is a guy who has a clean mind when he fights it. Not thinking about anything else. He's really able to do what the teacher says, the coach says, like leave everything outside. And if you lose, like just I heard a podcast about one of the books of a big catch wrestler. It was kind of the same philosophy, staying positive, just tie your belt again, go at it again. I think people, this is something that people are too proud. Maybe this is one of the biggest problems, even more so than the technical part, because the technical part evolved. Because it's always good to have new moves. It's great because even if you don't do them, you learn how to defend from them. Right now, there's a brown belt dude who's really light. He's training with us. He does a lasso, worm guard, this Keenan stuff.
Mhm.
It's difficult to because you find yourself trapped. And I'm all for it, but well, you have to respect like where things came from.
Yeah, no, that's interesting though. So now we're seeing, even though like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, like like is dominate or like is hegemonic even in our country in the United States, but it's interesting to see kind of like how you're mentioning Brazilians kind of looking at stuff that we're doing in the United States and in like incorporating that into their Jiu-Jitsu game.
Yeah, that's what I say. Japanese guys never try to, well, the Russian necktie and the Judo Olympics. Uh, they just do their stuff. So let's do our stuff.
Mm,
Because, well, if we're trying to imitate that, no, people here they only talk about Gordon Ryan and stuff, and I say, well, this guy's awesome, but he's one. They
hmm.
talk about the Suicide Squad, but who are the other virtuosos? Like Greg Jones was someone else's student. I really like the what's the name of their coach, the bow dude,
Danaher, John
Venner. I
Danaher. Yeah.
like him. Yeah, I know his work for a long time because he was instructor at Great Henzo. Henzo knows a lot about jiu-jitsu. But well, yes, he has the greatest Noki grappler, and but I mean, he doesn't have years of success making great. I watch it at Edgy Bravo saying that now he's the best coach, but I tend to agree on a few things because he's more old school. For example, you notice Gordon Ryan places his hand when he's on the bottom guard, like it is supposed to be. He does, but I think also like if he's Edgy Bravo maybe is the best because he's been doing this for years and his style is getting different. It's getting more about risk control, more and more and more about risk control. I don't know. It's weird. Yeah, people do things. Keenan is huge here, and well, Keenan is huge, and the red belts are forgotten. So it's oh, hello, Raul.
Hello. I don't know. For some reason, my thing cut out or something. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah. But what I'm saying that is that Keenan is huge here, and he offends people by saying stupid stuff that you don't say, like that Hickson would only be a purple belt. Well, I liked one thing I heard from Helson, which is the best. The Hickson's brother, is the best at self-defense. He teaches CIA and
Hmm.
whatever. It's impossible to make him hostage. My teacher is also. He doesn't teach his students to defend themselves from guns, but he's not. He was. He's the security for like Guns N' Roses in Latin America, the Pope when he comes to Brazil, whatever.
Wow.
But why talk of Keenan Cornelius in the first place? Helson Gracie said one thing. Helson Gracie said one thing that is really interesting. I would like to see if he could take the knife off of my hands in the streets at night because I can take from his hands. So it's well, just because you compete at whatever at the top of the pyramid in LA. Well, it's and people get really. For example, I was training right now with a friend who has his IBJJF dojo and very good competition team, but he kept poking me with to see if how much I respected IBJJF because oh they are so great. That's what I say. My politics is just being the big Lebowski. Oh, it's awesome. Oh, this guy's very technical. Oh my God, it's awesome. Oh, it blew my mind off. I love this. But people get sad because you are say, and now I understand that people. One of the guys here in the area, he's my age. He just got promoted to the fifth degree, and he was like a new school proponent a few years ago. And right now he cried and he says he's back to the old school. And because he understood the everything he was taught years and years ago, and you can blame anyone. For example, the purple and brown belts. I studied not under my Leonardo Spekterov, Carson Zendela Riva student, but because he was not teaching, he's probably 60 right now, and he's still teaching. But he was only doing his bodyguard gigs, and I trained with Tanquinho and Tank, which
Hmm.
were my friends, and Tanquinho is one of the best grapplers I've ever seen. But I felt like, oh my God, I'm doing something less than people here. Even though I'm passing their guard, this is stupid. What I'm doing is not modern. I had these ideas maybe 15 years
Wow.
ago as
Well,
a
even though
purple
it's like
belt.
you're successful, but you're
Yeah,
I think because there was like the what I remember they're doing the mainstream thing, but you're still
yeah,
successful against it, and you feel like it's failing, right?
like a fraud or something like it. Well,
Wow.
maybe when I need to use it for real and in my life, it's gonna not going to work. One of the day, I remember one day it was yeah, I just decided I was going to train anymore. But this is all. I think it's part of the process. But I think back in the days, coaches would not let you have this kind of doubt because it's just doesn't make sense. If it works, it works. If it doesn't work, then you fix it and you make it work. There's no point in trying to imitate anyone else's style. Taking an inspiration is one thing, but you have your own body, and well, they say jujitsu adjusts to your body, and I take this really seriously. It will adjust to my body. That's what I say to people when I cross face people and stuff. I said, "Oh my god, but you can see I'm a little bit of a chubby dude, and oh, that's what I can do. I'm not as good as you are." If that's what you want to hear.
But you're still passing their guard and
Oh yeah, tapping
submitting them.
them. Yeah.
You just tell them that you're like, oh, I just got lucky today.
No, but it's funny because they tap to something, and I was back at the in IBJJF gym, and now I'm training with guys from the same team, and I tapped a purple belt like really quick a few times with, and I showed to a white belt guy who came from Luta Livre. He also did Luta Livre. This guy, he asked me to see the position. The guy didn't bother to, and I said I called him out and said, hey, let me show you. But that's okay. You don't want to learn. You don't want to learn.
Mm,
that's fine. But it works, and maybe you can be better prepared next time. But it's it's all about ego now and fighting ego,
yeah,
but people fail to see it, and I think that after you do martial arts for a long time, whether you're a BJJ black belt or you're a wrestler, you see life in a different way. Maybe you had too much yang, and you need the yin and different things. You're just a
mhm,
different person because the way I see stuff and so how you see distance and things. I think it's the same for you being a fighter. But these guys are, yeah, we have to understand they're still like learning how to handle their own egos, and I'm sure that well, Americans are already starting to neck crank to face lock people and do this stuff, and then they will come back doing it and saying that it was always cool and nice and whatever. It's just have to wait next ADCC and see like the highlight reels, and then people believe stuff by they focus only on the elite. They don't take the rule set and the gear you're wearing in consideration because well, take it. I tried some shuai jiao.
mhm,
It's very difficult to take people down because you either break your wrists. I don't know how to. And with the gi, it's easier for me to try a haraigoshi or a chimata, but
mhm.
shuai jiao is very difficult because how they position themselves. But people don't take this into consideration. And if you talk about this, people think you're kind of crazy. Hey man, it doesn't make any sense. Are you tripping on something? People,
Yeah, no, it's so true. It's kind of cool that
people
you
don't have
mentioned.
this.
Yeah, no, it's really cool that you mentioned that because yeah, it's like it's a Shuai is a really cool or a really like even effective way, but it does have it's still very Chinese, so they
Yeah,
do have like their own footwork that it would be common like or it'd be like you almost like you'd be in that language, right? In a
yeah, exactly.
so it wouldn't necessarily be strange to learn that. But yeah, someone coming from another country, another way of thinking or way of doing things, and it seems so weird, but they're both effective, like the
Really
jujitsu or
effective.
the judo and the shuai jiao.
Yeah, try Java. I did some try Java. They had it here, and the guys from Sanda were doing this.
Hmm.
I started like doing some try Java, but then I quit because doing judo I didn't hurt as much as try Java because they throw you like this,
Yeah.
so it hurts like a motherfucker because I'm ready to break the fall, but I don't know how to break a Shuai Chao fall. I can even like, and another thing I really like about catch wrestling are the takedowns. They're super simple, and right now I have this idea. I grab one of the wrists, and then I take, and I push the wrists below the opponent's crotch, get from
Hmm.
the other side, and just let my weight do the job. So I don't need to try to throw people. And this other one, like the Sakuraba did, uh, which
Yeah,
is like maybe for me it was 100%. Everyone falls to
yeah,
this
the
technique.
low single.
Yeah.
Is that what you meant? You're
The low
mentioning that one
single,
earlier.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. It's
it's kind of
incredible.
funny that you bring that up because I use that and actually like the dynamics of the low single. um, I use it a lot, and like and you know that I train a lot at 10th Planet and stuff. So a lot of
Mhm.
people are coming at me at seat with seated guard or whatever, and or a lot of open guard type things, and a lot of the low single principles work so well. Like especially if you want to try how you mentioned like cooking the chicken, or it's like you're gonna
Yeah,
do it incrementally. Using the low single fundamentals can help you really well against like a seated guard, open guard type things. And I kind of mix that with some of the whole Toriando type uh, pressure on
mhm.
like the shins and the knees and stuff. It works so well. And actually, that's you know how the course that I came out with is the volume one, pressure pass volume one. Volume two, that's my goal is to uh, show a lot of that, like a lot of the stuff that I'm using against Nogi, but it's based off of the low single fundamentals and ways to follow through and attack, like seated guard, open guard, like that. So hopefully you like
Gotcha.
that one.
This is yeah. I love this move. I love this move. I think I'm pulling it with the gi all the time. I say, oh,
Awesome.
let's do some judo, old school, like because it's a lot of judo schools they still allow for old school judo, especially because there are guys who have been black belts for 30 years, so they're not going to relearn for because now in judo in the last Olympics you couldn't even clinch your opponent.
Wow. Wow.
So okay, so let's do it. And yeah, terrible. So let's do old school and ba ba ba. I can throw a lot of judo black belts doing this. They can
Wow.
figure out a way. They figure out a way of not. They figure out as soon as they figure out how to walk against a guy who can do this. But otherwise, it's a surprise, and they will try to do something like a sprawl that there is in judo, similar to a sprawl, but they can't.
Mm,
They can't
mm,
because it's an awesome principle, and I'm happy because with this being able to learn more about catch because I always thought that martial arts are based on simple principles, simple not simple, like they are actually very complex because it's really difficult to become good at something that is simple. So it's subtle. Martial arts are really subtle. They have to a lot to do with your mindset and the way you have face life in general. I tend to see it this way. I'm really into catch wrestling right now. I've been I, I I learned about catch wrestling maybe 20 years ago, and then started watching things about Billy Robinson. Watched his movie. There's a movie called The Wrestler
mm, mm,
from 1974, and I watch it all the time. And I was always like watching the moves, and because I knew the guy was a legit fighter, and it's great to be learning more from that. We have this technology, and then I can learn more stuff, and it's interesting that this pass it's very similar to a guard pass we have in São Paulo um, called from Barbosa B19. He was Pan American level judo guy, and he passed Royler Gracie's guard. It's always Royler losing to Ezzy
mm,
Bravo, then
mm.
losing to him in the Mondial's final. Great fighter, Royler is awesome. But I think he passed his guard in this way. He went to the Honke Sagatami straight from guard, and people were like, "Oh my god!" But he was a ranked judoka, and I'm catch wrestling is great. I can't help but think like, well, if you're for example, if I was a UFC heavyweight, I would try to learn this as soon as possible because then you
Yeah.
beat everyone. Yeah,
Oh, well, that's good to hear. It's always nice to hear good things about catch wrestling, right? But yeah, I have to agree with you because yeah, it does have that top down approach, and if you're a heavyweight, you're not really going to be wanting to pull guard, right?
no, and also you don't want your opponent to escape from the ground. Once you're in
Hmm.
the ground, like getting up, getting down, getting up, getting down. Like um, uh, I did judo like maybe a couple weeks back. Like I was sore and stuff because even if you know it, it's different than jiu-jitsu. There's a transition like wrestling, up down, up down, up down.
Yeah.
So you put the guy down, he stays there. You beat the crap out of him. Like maybe you try a double wrist lock, like progressive positions or necktie. It's great. I was so happy when I saw Ben Askren doing the Bulldog choke on Robbie Lawler. It was so great. Even
Yeah, that was
though
really cool.
I
Yeah.
believe Robbie Lawler said, yeah, he said he didn't tap, but he was going to tap. It was there was no way out.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
really
I
cool to
didn't.
see that back. I hope.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, because his neck was pretty well controlled, and it even if he were to try to like move the rest of his body, it was pretty sunk in there. So yeah,
Yeah, and the head
inevitable.
and yeah, and Askren is really the way he grabs his own hand is so interesting. And
Mm-hmm.
it's
Oh,
impossible
totally.
to let go of his yeah, completely impossible. It's great. I hope that, well, if you once you show me, once you have the low single principle, I'll also try it. I'm still digging the pressure passing system.
Okay,
It's
awesome. Well, hopefully, even with the like with COVID and all that stuff, hopefully, maybe we can even. Yeah, if you have your tour here in the United States or LA, you can train or maybe yeah, I've never been to Brazil. I'd love to go. So hopefully we can
oh,
meet up
if you're ever
sometime.
here, yeah, 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 definitely. We even have a space here where we do our own experiences, like our we call it a workshop. So everyone's welcome, but they have to understand that there's no crying about tapping or whatever. People tap
Hmm.
me as well. I don't care. And little social media. Well, of course, if we have a visitor from Los Angeles, a catch wrestler, then we have to. But just like focus on, yeah, there's where I shoot my videos, because if I do
Hmm.
this at a IBJJF gym, people are going to frown upon me,
Mm.
uh,
Yeah, that makes
because it's
sense.
not supposed to work. Yeah,
Yeah, no, that's interesting that too. That you like, yeah, to your workshop because truly that should be the mindset or the mentality of the dojo or the gym, right? You should be trying different things and figuring out how to make them work. If you try a move and they reverse you and you submit or whatever, you shouldn't that shouldn't bother you. You should just be like, okay, I know this move works, so let me. How do I make it work? Like instead of like, oh
exactly.
damn, I got tapped or whatever.
Ah, yeah, yeah. And I think all your progress in martial arts in general, wrestling, whatever, it's just becoming more resilient and caring less about, okay, I tap, let's go again, let's go again, let's go again, let's do it again, do it again, do it again. Like keep pushing your, not pushing yourself, you already have it within you, but be focused and control the pace. That's the most important thing for me, controlling the pace.
Yeah, very important.
Especially like fighting wrestlers is super difficult, but yeah, you have to control their pace because if they're amateur wrestlers, then eventually they'll get tired of, because they try to pace it super fast, and
Hmm.
then you have openings and you can work.
Yes. Oh, totally. And yeah, you can
It's
using your
interesting.
skill,
Well,
using your skill, your technique, you can slow down. And that's we're kind of talking about it earlier, where it's like, but a lot of people think like, oh, the young guy can always beat the old guy, but using technique, you can slow
yeah,
down the young guy or slow down the wrestler, and you can still win.
yeah, and that's what Rocky calls O's power. In jiu-jitsu, now people are figuring out in Rio. All the teachers I talk to, guys from generation, I'm 40. They're, that the older you get, the more time you spend doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and grabbing to a piece of cloth, like your isometric strength bigger and bigger and bigger. And those new kids, they don't have nearly the same isometric. Uh,
Hmm.
they're not capable of using their weight as effectively or being. They can do a lot more, and they they grow as the time they become better as the fight goes on. But this thing that, well, you see MMA, Fabrício Verdun
Hmm.
just armbarred. It was like 43, whatever. He Alexander Gustafsson like
Hmm.
took his back. His You just need to know uh, there's the way and there's the you learn the shortcuts as you get old, and also yeah, there's no losers. That's
Oh darn.
that degree. All those things are a lot of those things are worst case scenario because you have to $10,000 to the victim because if you raise your hands in the street, it's considered your. So it's just something you learn because you like. It's
Hmm.
not like, and I see a lot of people saying I'm learning because I will beat the shit out of someone, and that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Because well, you can well, why don't you take a chair if you want to commit a crime or something?
Hmm. Yeah, totally. Okay. Well, maybe before our internet cuts out again, maybe we'll go ahead and end our conversation here. But I really thank you for taking the time out of your schedule because I know you've been doing gigs and all that too. So thank you for taking time to talk. Also,
Yeah.
people want to like find you online or even your band and stuff. What's some of the best ways or locations to find you?
Oh, okay. It's well, if they want to find me online, I know you can translate everything on Instagram. It's Thiago, Thiago, Darvin, the name of my band, Garvin. So holla at me if anything. If people want to talk about grappling, I'm always there.
Okay, great. And you'd be a really great person to talk to because just your experience, and it should be obvious you're a black belt, but then you also have an appreciation and you've spent time kind of researching or practicing so many different martial art styles. So you're an invaluable resource for martial arts understanding. All right. So thank
Oh,
you.
thank you very
And
much. Thank you very
yeah,
much.
okay.
Thank you.
So,
Congratulations for your work with catch wrestling. It's
oh,
also
thank
very
you.
important. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. And so maybe what we'll do is maybe I'll put a link to your Instagram in the show notes and all that, and then we'll also put a link to our Pressure Pass System Volume One. Also, if people are interested, that'll all be in the description. So look for that there. And thank you very much for watching, and thank you for joining us. And hopefully, we can do it again.
Okay. Thank you.